Hello, my name is Michelle Rathgeber, and I'm the archaeological assistant at the Parkin Station of the Arkansas Archaeological Survey. And our lab is located inside of the visitor center at Parkin Archaeological State Park. And so in our lab, we curate and research the artifacts that were excavated from the Parkin site that is part of the park, as well as other sites that are part of the Parkin phase. And so we think that the site of Parkin itself was the capital of a chiefdom, but then there were many other sites across the region that were part of that chiefdom as well. And so by researching artifacts from many of those sites, we can start to understand how people were living in this region in the past. And we were really excited because at the beginning of 2020, we had planned to start hosting open lab days at our lab. And we were going to bring the public in and have them do lab work with us, so washing, sorting, and analyzing artifacts, and get them really into doing the archaeology in the lab and seeing what kind of things we can learn from archaeological artifacts and how archaeology is so much more about lab work than it is about the excavation part that everybody thinks of when they think of archaeology. And so it was really great. We hosted two, one in January and one in February. We had a few people and we were really like gearing up to make it a bigger event. And then of course, March happened. And I think it was March 14th that everything, all public programming was shut down across the state. And so state parks canceled all of their public programming. The Arkansas Archaeological Survey canceled all of our public programming as well. And so we had to stop open lab days. And that was really disappointing for me because I really thought we had started to gain some steam. We were getting people into the lab. So I thought about it for a little bit and I thought, well, I mean, people can't come to the lab right now, but we can still talk about lab work and the things that I'm doing in the lab and the things that they will be doing in the lab when the lab opens back up to the public. And so I started filming a series of just short videos about what we do in the lab, how we work with the artifacts, what kind of details we're looking for when we look at different types of artifacts, and what kind of things we learn from doing all that analysis. And I started posting those videos to our Facebook page, our Parkin Archaeological Site Facebook page. And it was pretty cool. We got some really good interactions, but I realized talking with some of my colleagues from other parts of the state and in other states that it was kind of a limited audience because not everyone has Facebook or access to Facebook and maybe doesn't want a Facebook account. So I thought, well, the survey does have this YouTube channel. Maybe we can utilize that. So that's what we're doing right now. So I just wanted to mention that because sometimes in some of the videos I'll say, well, look down at the comments for a picture or another source of information. And on YouTube, it's not going to be in the comments, it's going to be in the description. Little things like that you'll probably hear throughout the series of videos coming up. And then while I have you here now, I wanted to mention a few vocab words that I'm going to use throughout. And we've tried to define them when they come up in the other videos, but just so you have that in front of you. The first one is FSN, and that is the field specimen number. Or sometimes I'll call it the field serial number. But essentially what that is a number that's kind of randomly assigned. It doesn't mean anything by itself, but we have these pieces of paper where we keep track of those FSN numbers and what they mean. And so we have this one here, and then we know what unit that FSN number comes from, what depth, kind of a little bit of general information about it. And then we keep track of how many bags of artifacts are associated with that FSN and the date when it was excavated. And not only do we do that when we're doing excavation, but if we find artifacts on the surface somewhere, we give them an FSN number. And that FSN number is also then always written on bags of artifacts. So you can see it right here. And then we could go back to that catalog to see what that means. We also write it on little cards. And again, it's up here. We put these cards inside those bags. We have this FSN information written over and over and over again so that we don't lose the next important thing, the pervenience. So the pervenience is where exactly an artifact came from. And so that could mean I took a GPS location and I know exactly where that artifact came from. That could mean that it came from excavation level 2 in unit 4. And then all of the artifacts that came from that will have the same pervenience. They all came from that unit and that level. Or it could mean that there were a bunch of things found together in one section of a unit during an excavation, and those might have a specific pervenience, and then they therefore might get a specific FSN, and all of that will be recorded on our catalog. And so pervenience is really important because it's where things came from, and when we're doing archaeological research, where things came from and in relation to other things is what's so important. And we'll talk about that more in the other videos coming up. And then the last thing that I use a lot is assemblage. And an assemblage is really just a group of artifacts. And so we can have the artifact assemblage from the entire Parkin site. Or we could have the ceramic assemblage from the Parkin site, and that just means all of the ceramic artifacts. Or we could have the ceramic assemblage from level 3 of unit 6. It's just a way to group artifacts together. It's a term we use in archaeology, the assemblage. And depending on context, it can mean slightly different things. And generally we'll talk about that when that comes up. But the assemblage is the group of artifacts that we're talking about at that given moment. And so, like I said, these have all been pre-filmed, but we're gonna do a little bit of editing on them and then get them up on YouTube. So we're hoping to schedule them once a week or once every other week. And we'll go through and we'll talk about all of the different artifact types, both prehistoric and historic, and how archaeologists look at them, what details they look for, and what we do with that information afterwards. So I hope you'll join me for a couple of months probably worth of lab work content, and I enjoyed filming them, so I hope you enjoy watching them. I'll talk to you later. Bye.